Cos, nice to talk to you, mate. So obviously immigration, it has long been in the news. It has long been part of the Australian conversation. But we know at this moment, for obvious reasons, there's a certain frustration. Reality is that I believe that the residual for those that are annoyed is not about ethnicity, it's about the sheer number of. It's about, as I showed before, a change in Australia's population going from 18 to 28 on its way to 40 million, where the infrastructure hasn't quite caught up. So in your conversations about immigration at a political level, how much of it is completely blank to ethnicity and how much of it is about ethnicity?
Bit of a mixed bag. So if we speak to most Australians and we ask them the question, do you think there's too much immigration? The answer is overwhelmingly going to be, yeah, I reckon so, even amongst diverse Australians. However, then when we ask them the question, so why do you think people are raising this as a concern right now? Some Australians will say, well, I'm stuck in traffic for 2-3 hours a day. Our roads can't cope. And these are really legitimate reasons, especially in the outer suburbs of Sydney and Melbourne in particular, but also other cities. Then, of course, some diverse Australians have a view that, no, they're raising it right now because, well, they actually don't like us. And it's fundamentally also the epicenter of some of the problems we're seeing, where we now have communities that are voting for particular political parties, not because of their ideological perspective or what they actually personally believe in, but purely on sectarian grounds.
Yeah, which brings me to an observation about the Indian community. Right now, again, broad brushes here. Nobody's trying to be offensive. We're just trying to, from 1,000 miles up, have a look at what's going on here. Now, obviously, hardworking, entrepreneurial, socially conservative. You would think, okay, that's going to lean you in the direction of the Liberal Party. Yet, according to some of the analysis here, 85% of that diaspora voted for the Labor Party, which in many ways is antithetical to some of those things. So when you were talking to Indian voters or Australians of Indian descent, either people who'd just been here or been here for a little while, why did they vote Labor when presumably so many of the other things they're about and that they believe in line up the opposite of Labor?
Yeah, you've summed them up pretty well. They are largely small business people. They're entrepreneurial, wealth accumulators, very, very, very conservative in a lot of their social views. There's a good reason John Howard really embraced not just the Indian diaspora, but also the Chinese diaspora, to bring them into this country in very significant numbers as skilled migrants. And that's because not only were that was going to be good for the economy, but also for him, from his political perspective, would have been good politics too. But he didn't factor in that, unfortunately, for the Liberal Party, as time went on and he left the political scene, they got a bit careless with their language. And so a lot of these particularly younger Indian Australians, when we speak to them, they explain to us all these values that we just touched on. And we ask them the question, well, you should be voting Liberal. Why aren't you voting Liberal? And they said, well, because they don't like us.
Wow.
It's as simple as that.
So what is it about anything the Liberal Party has said that would give them that perception? Because obviously we certainly know, and again, we can have an hour-long conversation about information and misinformation in and around parts of the Australian Chinese media that makes its way through to the diaspora. But in terms of, there hasn't been the national security conversations. There hasn't been the COVID-esque issues. So what is the perception? Who is the figure? Is there a moment in time when something was said?
Yeah, I would say the best way, I think the damage that was done would have been during the Morrison years in particular.
Right.
And unfortunately for Peter Dutton, he was carrying that baggage as well. And some of the policy announcements he made just compounded that problem. And of course, Labor jumped on it and actually capitalised on it as well. Because you will remember, back in 2016, I would argue that a very significant number of Chinese Australians voted for the Liberal Party.
Absolutely.
They won seats like Chisholm. This constituency was not a Labor constituency, and now it's the exact opposite. And as a result of that, we're seeing seats like Menzies, Aston in Melbourne, Reid and Bennelong in Sydney go to the Labor Party purely because there's a very significant numbers of these people in these electorates. That said, it should also be a lesson to everyone in politics, and that is nothing is fixed.
Correct.
So my point is, if you're on the conservative side of politics, there's no point trying to basically say, well, that's it, wash our hands of them, they're never going to be with us again. Well, you don't know that, right? I mean, I'm born to Greek migrants. My parents voted Labor, and probably most Greeks of their generation at the time were 85% voting Labor. I can guarantee you the majority of Greeks my generation today, they're voting Liberal.
Yeah.
Right?
And I reckon your gun and badge would be burnt if that was the case for you. But I understand. I understand what you're saying about the broader diaspora. So, final question here. Okay, how important is it for everyone watching right now, who may well have felt more comfortable in 1995 than 2025 about, say, the size of population? Let's put all the other issues to a side, right? Everyone needs to learn that if you want any plan of winning 76 seats,
yes,
you have to have an ability not just to patronise, speak to, speak down to, turn up to the ethnic festivals. You can't get a majority of seats unless you are appealing to multiple diasporas. And how important is that for a message for Labor to hold on to, but again, more importantly for the coalition when it is trying to work out the next 3, the next 6, the next 9, the next 12 years?
Absolutely critical, and, we've done some work with the Daily Telegraph, for example, in this space, and they, at the beginning of the cricket season last year, they front-paged their narrative in Hindi. And rejoicing that the Indian cricket team was over here. The advertisements on the paper were in Indian language as well, and so that's the corporate world's moving in that direction, understanding this is a very significant group of Australians, big market share, and of course a big share of the ballot box. And I would say that at the moment they're voting Labor, but that's not fixed, and so. My message to people in politics, whether you're red or blue or green or whatever you are, don't assume things stay as they do. And hence I use the reference to the community I come from, where historically, we will march out to the polling place, with our dragged by our ear to vote for the Labor Party, right? But most of them are not doing that anymore. So.
Cos, it was state of the race in the lead up to the election. This might just be, the hard truths that we have to discuss for the next little while. Again, Redbridge, I think they're the best in the business. Thank you so much for your time, Cos. Talk to you soon. And again, the podcast, it is The Curtain Podcast, correct? Yep, that's the one. Yep. The Curtain Podcast. Go and find that. Really interesting stuff. All right. Now, we've got a lot to get to in the next little while.